College is a time of major transition and of stress. Add in the pandemic, and colleges are left struggling to cope with ever increasing levels of mental distress among students. John Yang looks at the problem and what can be done on and off campus for our series, Rethinking College.
Judy, a study this year by the American College Health Association found that 48% of college students reported moderate or severe psychological stress, 53% reported being lonely, and 1 in 4 had considered suicide. Many college campuses are scrambling to expand and rethink the ways they help students cope with mental health concerns. Rihanna Elise Anderson is an assistant professor of health behavior and health education at the University of Michigan. Thanks for being with us. This issue, I think, really got a lot of attention nationally when the University of North Carolina had sort of a mental health break for students after there were 2 apparent suicides. But you study this issue, you teach young people on a college campus. What do you see? Talk about your personal experience to sort of give our viewers a sense of this issue.
Sure. So we know over the past year, we've watched stress, anxiety, and depression go up about 4-fold for everyone. And that absolutely includes our young folks. So whether these are pediatric populations or the collegiate population, we're watching this number just balloon. And that's on top of what we saw even as a pattern before COVID. So we're watching college students really get impacted by the comparison that they're seeing in their classmates online and social media. They're using comparison and they're feeling particularly anxious about it for themselves.
What were the factors before the pandemic?
Social media is one thing that has really ballooned in this past decade, where children and adolescents and now college students who have been utilizing those strategies for the past several years now are starting to see, oh, that person got into college, this person scored this on this exam, whereas before you could only look as far as the cafeteria, right? You didn't know what was happening nationwide, but now you have this greater comparison, and it's really impacting one's well-being.
Is there a sense of a generational difference that young people now are perhaps more concerned about mental health issues?
A wonderful article just came out looking at even the generation like myself, which is just one above the millennials, who really started thinking about mental health a bit differently than our generation before us. We're starting to see now that generational divide in the Gen Zers who are really staking a claim and saying, not only am I noticing it, but I want to take those days like the UNC students demanded, or I have to see a counselor rather than go to class, rather than go to work. And that's something that our generation or those above never thought to do, never thought possible. So on the one hand, what a wonderful thing to do and to have that autonomy to say. It's another thing, though, when collegiate professors like myself are now saying, well, what do we do? How do we contend with teaching, with meeting, with doing the things that we have to do for school to continue and meeting the needs of our students? So it's just challenging now for us to contend with that.
Are there differences along sort of racial, ethnic, socioeconomic lines? I think particularly maybe first-generation college students whose families may not be prepared to help them through this.
Certainly, COVID has impacted that. So we're seeing this dual impact of not only the resources that have been impacted by COVID, but the socioeconomic and racial disparities. So you're watching folks who perhaps didn't have the access or the tablets, the technology to do the work from home, or perhaps they didn't want to show their screens. And so that's lessening the amount of time that they're on screen. They're feeling less connected to folks. And now that they're back in a college setting, that year has really impacted them. And they're trying to understand, how do they find community? How are they now exposed to some of the things that they weren't exposed to last year, including discrimination or rejection? So they're contending with a lot of things that are unique for them relative to their classmates.
Talk about how colleges and universities can address this. How can they help students deal with this? And also, you talk about students being more willing to seek help. Are they being a little overwhelmed or finding greater demand than they have the supply for?
Absolutely. So you said it well, and the ways that we can combat that are prevention and intervention strategies. So with respect to what you just said, the CAP services or counseling and psych services that most universities have, if we know what these numbers are, we can plan accordingly. We can make sure that we have referrals in the community, we can expand the number of people on staff. So intervention strategies, once we know that mental health problems are bubbling over, can be something that we can do. But we can also engage in prevention strategies. That is, can we reduce the amount of assignments that we're giving? Can we take more days like UNC did as a community so that no one's emailing, it's not just you saying, I'm going to take an individual day. Your professors, your administration, no one is emailing or expecting anything of you so that we can prevent some of those problems that we're seeing in the first place.
Rihanna Elise Anderson from the University of Michigan, thank you very much.
Thank you.